That's 7 o'clock though, Russell. So, hi, Mike again. Our president is online tonight, David, but he has no sound. So our vice president, Russell Wheater, is going to take the meeting. So over to Russell.
Okay, well, thank you all. Welcome to the this meeting on the 26th of November at the Bridge of Allen and Dunblane Rotary Club. Welcome to our speaker, Mike Storr, and to our other visitors who I have a list of. I'm not sure who are online at the moment. I believe Vika is online, and I've seen Stuart Winton. Not sure about Bill Sweeney. Is he online yet?
Some things are more predictable than others.
John Patterson and Trevor Boyd I hadn't seen either.
I think John's on.
Anyway, we have apologies from Liz and Charlie Balding, Russell Clark, Bill Cruikshank, Liz Ferguson, Jonathan Marshall, Jill Scott, Bill Sharp, Ian Smith, and obviously Craig had to depart us due to issues. So I would like to now ask Mike if he would like to give us his talk on Masters of Mirth and Affection, an affectionate look at his musical hall laughter makers. His favourite musical laughter makers. Over to you, Mike. Thank you.
Peter, can you put me back onto gallery? Can you put the whole picture back on again, please? I don't want it on this the way it is at the moment. I'd like it to be on gallery view, please. Okay. I don't want to share. I don't want to share the screen.
Okay.
Please.
There you go.
I've got you again.
I'm sure now.
See, worse. No.
Well, we've got gallery view this end.
Yes. Okay. If you're, I don't. Well, first of all, good evening, everybody, and can I say good evening to Mrs. Holmes? I'm very pleased, Peter, that you've invited your other half. I'm a bit upset none of the other fellas have done that, but there we go.
Oh no! Mrs. Member.
Yeah. All right, I do beg your pardon. I do beg your pardon. See, a slip of the tongue. Yes, greetings from Carlton Rotary Club in Nottingham here. In fact, I was only about 35 miles away from you at lunchtime. I was talking to Glenn Rothers on the other side of the country, and I've just taken a little trickle on the, is it the M8 to you? Could I ask you, if those of you who can, go on to speak of you, if you can. That means going up to the right-hand corner and clicking on speak of you, and you'll find me. Another thing is, please don't mute yourself. I'd like you all to be unmuted, but if it does get too noisy, then dogs, Rod will mute you for me. Right. Firstly, let me explain who I am. My name's Mike Storr. I've been a Rotarian now for 40 years. I was born in Lincoln, spent my first 25 years in Lincoln. I'm a freeman of the city of Lincoln, which I'm very proud of. I worked for ICI all my life, actually, in far-flung places like Cambridge. Hello. Well, that's good. Thank you. Are you on the same pension as I am, Stuart?
No, I was ICI Organics, and we've been through about 3 or 4 gestations of pension fund at the moment. So no, sorry,
we mustn't do these in jokes. I was with Paints Division. I'm married. I've got 2 kids, 2 grandchildren, 5 grandchildren, and 5.5 great grandchildren. The half's due at Christmas, so that'll be quite exciting. So let's crack on. This is called Masters of Mirth.
A whiskey record.
This evening, I'm going to take you back to the time of the music hall, mainly between the World War One and the 1950s. The important line on that particular slide is the bit at the bottom where it says donations to Asthma UK. I am a lifetime asthmatic, and one of the problems you've got with any sort of long-term illness, be it asthma or anything else, is that you become familiar with it and you tend to let yourself go down the hill too far before you call for help. And that happened to me about 5-6 years ago. I had an extremely bad attack of asthma. I thought I could cope, and I couldn't. And I ended up in hospital. It was only through the skills of the medics that got me through it. And I began to think, what can I do to say thank you to Asthma UK for keeping me on the planet a bit longer? So I devised this talk mainly while I was recuperating. And after I'd done it, I showed it to did it for 1 or 2 Rotary clubs around here and a couple of WIs, and it sort of hit a spot. And so much so that in the last 6 years, this is my 503rd presentation of this particular talk. And I've raised over £28,500 for Asthma UK from people like yourself, Probus, anybody else who would talk to me and offer me a donation. So that's a little bit about me. Let's crack on. Look, I make no excuse. Oops, pressing the wrong buttons. I make no excuses about having a script with me. Even in my younger days, I used to do quite a lot of amateur dramatics, and I can remember a script just like that. But these days, when my memory goes, and you can't remember what you're thinking about, especially when you get to my age, 50, 55, you're in trouble. So, yeah, okay.
Very well.
What was I talking about? Oh yeah, amateur dramatics. Yeah, my local group in the village here rang me up just before last lockdown, and they said, "Mike, when you come back and give us a hand?" No, I'd rather not. I said I can't remember scripts, and I don't want to embarrass myself and embarrass the club. Just leave me out. So they said, "That's a shame." I said, "Why?" They said, "Well, we wanted to crack at Shakespeare, and we wanted somebody of your caliber to give it a bit of oomph." I said, "Well, my ump's gone a long time ago, but I'd rather not." They said, but then the crunch came. They said, "But we want you to take the lead, Mike." I thought I've been doing amateur dramatics for 35 years, and I've never been asked to take the lead in a Shakespeare play. I thought, okay, I'll do it. I said, "What are we going to be doing?" They said, "Romeo and Juliet." I said, "I'm not putting a dress on again for anybody, just forget it." Are you all ready for Christmas? It's going to be a strange Christmas this year, isn't it? I love Christmas with the kids, the grandkids, and 5.5 great grandkids. One thing that irritates me a little bit is those crackers, crackers with those silly mottos inside, knock, knock, who's there? Doctor who? You said it, those sort of things. So we're a bit posh down here, but Joyce, a bit like you are in British Island and Dunblane up there. And we make our own crackers. And my wife will be with me now, but she's in the other room making crackers. If you believe that, you'll believe anything. But what I've got here is some of the fillings we're going to put in for this year. It's quite simple. I'm going to test them out on you. If I get a titter, they'll go in. If I don't, they won't. If a turtle doesn't have a shell, is it homeless or naked?
Boom, boom.
That's not going in. No. Do infants enjoy infancy as much as adults enjoy adultery?
Oh,
That's a good one.
That will go in the adult version, Russell, and it just tells me the sort of audience I'm talking to tonight. Why is there an expiry date on sour cream? Rod, you're going to have to explain this one to them later. Is there another word for synonym?
Very good. Cheers.
it's intellectual.
Eh?
Uh,
Was it possible? How is it possible to have? How is it possible to have a civil war?
What? Oh,
Civil War.
Civil War.
This one. This one is sent to me by my 9-year-old great grandson, and every time he rings up or speaks to his great grandma, he says, "Has Granddad done that one that I sent him?" So I have to say, yes, I have. So to be fair to my great grandson, I have to do this. Shouldn't hemorrhoids be called asteroids? I plenty want to teach him at school, but it's not what I taught. And my favorite. This is my favorite. If you try to fail and succeed, which have you done? Tonight, I'm going to take you back to the turn of the century. That's the 20th century, that is, when beer was 2p a pint and cigarettes to set you back 3 farthings for a pack of 20, and television and radio were just the figments of the imagination of people like H.G. Wells. And the only entertainment was either homespun in the front parlour, or as I'm going to present to you tonight for the next 2.5 hours, the music hall. Now look, I haven't travelled all the way from Nottingham up to Dunblay just to do 20 minutes, so hang on to your seat. So my talk this evening, ladies and gentlemen, is to offer, ladies and gentlemen, is to offer for your delectation a selection of masters of mirth, mainly from the end of the First World War up to the mid-1950s, when the musical went into rapid decline. But it's worth just talking for a few minutes about the origins of the musical. During the first half of the 19th century, the face of Britain had been changed by the Industrial Revolution. And as factories sprang up, people were needed to work in them, so sizable towns began to develop, and communities were much larger. And with these larger communities, the number of public houses and taverns mushroomed, and it was in such taverns that the music hall began to evolve. The people who ate and drank at these taverns were mainly working class, so as the ale flowed, they break into raucous sing-song. And landlords soon saw the value of encouraging these sing-songs, and soon were setting aside a small room or a hall, especially for this entertainment. And it's from these special rooms developed the music hall. In December 1849, a fellow called Charles Morton, he ran several taverns in London. He saw the worth of this new form of entertainment, and by the end of 1852, had built and opened a hall at the back of the pub that housed over 700 customers. It was known as the Canterbury Music Hall, and it was considered to be the first entertainment establishment of its kind. And by the end of the 19th century, there were over 300 music halls in London alone, and no self-respecting town or city in the land was without at least one music hall. Whilst everyone went for the music and comedy, there's no question that the availability of liquor was part of the music hall's appeal. The temperance movement complained bitterly that these halls encouraged heavy drinking, but the few alcohol-free halls that did open soon closed because nobody went. Music hall performers found the comedy of situations encountered in everyday life. For example, the police, the rent collector, the bailiff, the mother-in-law, the drunken husband, the shrewish wife, and the spendthrift who gambled away his money on a Friday night before he got home. And you know, patriotism and aspects of Victoriana were pandered to, and at the same time subtly ridiculed. And for those in the audience with the wit to see it, satire was there. So, to my interest in the musical, and in particular, the comics and the storytellers of that period, World War I, up to the end of the musical heydays in the 1950s. What I want to do now is to introduce you to a few of my favourite characters, a little of their life, and a sample of their acts. I'll just make a little comment here. I'm looking around the pictures here, and I can see there's many of you under the age of 55. Now, those of you who are, what you're going to hear for the next 2.5 hours is what your parents used to listen to on the radio. Okay, is that all right by you, Al? In today's fast-moving world, the scriptwriter is king. A comic joke can only be told once on television, then it's finished. But if you were a comic on the musical in the first part of the last century, you could use the same old script for 4 or 5 years, which are toured all around the country, visiting all the musicals in the land. Only one comedian that's done that right up to just recently, and that's dear old Ken Dodd. But the old comedians, the catchphrases are not new either. Nice to see you nice. Well, we all know that was Brucey. But the old comedians have them too. And this is where I'm going to test you lot. I'm going to shout a few catchphrases out, and I want you to tell me who they are. Can you hear me, mother?
Sandy Powell.
Andrew, you're correct. Sandy Powell. Did you see the picture of that before him? Sandy Powell, yeah. What about this one? Turn down nice again. That's a ukulele.
George Formby.
Excellent. What about this one? Hey, thank you.
Arthur Askey.
Askey, yes.
It's a one-man show, Andrew. This is this is a Cockney one here. There'll never be another lady. Cheeky chappy himself, Andrew.
Charlie Chester.
No, the other one.
Chaplin.
Max Miller.
Ah.
The day war broke out.
Rob Wilton.
Well, Rob Wilton. So I'm going to start with Robert Wilton. He was born Robert Wilton Smith in Liverpool in August 1881. He abandoned a career as an engineer and joined a local repertory company specialising in melodramas. But it wasn't long before Robert's comic potential came to the fore, and he began to create a gallery of inept but lovable eccentrics that would be the mainstay of his appearances right throughout his career. Lancashire comics such as Ken Dodd and Les Dawson acknowledged that Wilton had been a great influence on their own careers, and his gentle but pointed manner of comedy, well, it simmers the later wistful adventures of that lot in Dad's Army. This is his most famous monologue. It's the one from which that catchphrase comes, and it made him the star that he undoubtedly was. It's called The Home Guard, and it goes something like this. The day war broke out, my missus looked at me. She said, what good are you? I said, how do you mean, what good am I? She said, well, you're too old for the army. They won't have you in the Navy and not got a chance of getting in the Air Force. So what good are you? I said, well, I'll do something. She said, well, what? I said, how do I know? I'll have to think. She said, well, I don't know how that's going to help you. It's never helped you before. So what good are you? I said, don't keep saying what good am I? I said, there'll be munitions. She said, now, how are you going to get in munitions? I never said I was going to get in munitions. I just said there'd be some. Well, she said, all the young fellas have been getting called up, and then you'll have to go back to work. Ooh, she's got a cruel tongue in her head, that woman of mine. Then she said, our Harry is sure to get called up, and when he's gone, there'll only be his army allowance. So what are you going to do then? Well, I said, I'll have to try and manage on it, won't I? She said, you'll have to try and manage on it. What about me? I said, well, there'll be my insurance. She said, well, I can't get that till you're dead. I said, well, then you'll have to wait, won't you? She said, well, suppose I go first. I said, well, then you won't need it, will you? But you can't reason. She got, you know, the first day I got my Home Guard uniform, I took it home, went upstairs in bedroom, put it on, come down into the kitchen. Mrs. took one look at me. She said, what are you supposed to be? I said, supposed to be? I said, I'm one of the Home Guard. She said, what do you do in the Home Guard? I said, I've got to stop Hitler's armies landing. She said, what, you? I said, no. I said, there's Harry Bates and Charlie Evans. I said, 7 or 8 of us all together. We're on guard, a little look behind Dog and Pullet. She said, well, what's the point of being on guard behind the Dog and Pullet? I suppose that were your idea. I said, aye, and that Charlie Evans tried to claim it were his. And then she looked at me. She said, what do you do with one stripe? I mean, you've only just, I said, just be quiet, I'll explain. I said, as a matter of fact, Charlie Evans, Harry Bates and myself, we've got 1 stripe each. She says, well, I don't understand that. You've only got one day. Do you like that? I said, just a minute, I'll tell you. Tom Briley, our sergeant, got browned off, fed up with the teeth, chucked everything in and gave us 1 stripe each. But my missus, My missus, she has such daft questions. Only this morning she says, what are you supposed to be guarding? I said, oh, don't start all that again. I said, we're guarding British Isles. I said, we're guarding millions of men and women and children. And you? Oh, she said, you are on our side then? I said, well, of course I'm on our side. She said, well, I reckon we'll be a damn sight better off you on the other side. She said, I mean, you know this here Hitler. Have you ever met him? I said, oh, Ruby, you do talk a load of rubbish. Do I know Hitler? I'm not even in the paint business. Now, I always pause there, ladies and gentlemen, just to give a little bit of history lesson, that not a lot of people knew that Hitler used to be a painter and decorator before he did what he did. I just thought I'd throw that in. I wish I'd thrown it out now, but... She said, well, how are you going to know which is him if they do land? I said, well, I've got a tongue in me and I can ask, can't I? But you can't, it's no good. Oh, look at the time. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I should have been on duty 2 hours ago. Good night, and off we go. That was Rob Wilton for you. George Robey. Now, George Robey must be considered as one of the most successful stars of musical and theatre, and unlike many of those before him, he didn't come from a working class background. He was born in 1869 of a good middle class family. He had good education in England and Germany, and was at Cambridge when his father, like many other middle class parents, went broke, and George had to fend for himself. He decided his training as an engineer, and one day when he was in London, he was passing the Aquarium Theatre in Westminster, and on the bill was a hypnotist. And apparently he went into the theatre. The hypnotist invited him onto the stage to be a stooge. And apparently while he was under the influence of the hypnotist, he burst into song. And the management of the theatre was so impressed with his singing that they promptly gave him a paid engagement. And it's from that very modest beginning that he became one of the greatest stars of his time. And eventually he was knighted for his services to comedy. Although he became known as the Prime Minister of Mirth, Robey was multi-talented, being just as successful as the pantomime dame, as Falstaff in Olivia's film Henry V, as Menelaus in Offenbach's comic opera Helen, and as Sancho Panza in Don Quixote. But it was as a purveyor of suggested naughtiness that made him such a legend and so in demand that he could appear in 3-4 theatres, travelling around in his own carriage. This is one of his monologues. It's entitled, "It's the First Time I've Ever Done That." Now, let me explain why I'm wearing this silly hat. If you look at the picture, in the top left-hand corner of his head, you'll see just a smidgen of a bowler hat. Now, those of you who are technically adept, a bit like Rod there, they'll know what I've done. When I was putting this slide together, I found a picture of George Robey, lovely bowler hat and everything. But of course, when I tried to get it on the slide, it was too big. So I think the technical term, Rod, is I cropped it. I cropped his hat off and then couldn't get it back on again. So that's why he looks like he does. This is called, "It's the First Time I've Ever Done That." I do like a girl who's modest and shy and who thinks it's naughty to spoon. If a boy holds her hand, she will tremble and cry. If he gives her a squeeze, she will swoon. Should he perchance ask for one little kiss, she'll tremble all over and say something like this: "Oh, Algernon, pardon my blushes. I'm not used to this sort of thing. 'Tis weakness, I know, to let myself go when you've not even bought me a ring. As a rule, I'm not cheap, and my kisses I keep for my parents, my dog, and my cat. Apart from a few grenadiers and the Scots Fusiliers, it's the first time I've ever done that." I own just a small row of houses, worse luck, and one tenant by name, Mrs. Jelf, is a widow of means. I don't know what she means, and I don't think she quite knows herself. I call for the rent every month as a rule. The last time I called, she was distant and cool. She bade me in chilly good morning, not hello being as before. She said, "Pray don't stay, I won't keep you away from that fair-haired hussy next door." She was stern and sedate, and I grieve to relate, didn't ask me to hang up my hat. So I jolly well went, but she did pay the rent, and it's the first time she's ever done that. I once met a beautiful maiden. She hadn't a friend in the world. She told me she found me quite handsome, and I did like the way her hair curled. We met pretty often, in fact, every day, and we'd wander along in the following way. On Monday, we went to the pictures. On Tuesday, we went to a hall. On Wednesday, we went on a trip into Kent. And on Thursday, we went to a ball. On Friday, oh bliss, she allowed me a kiss on the lips at the door of her flat. And on Saturday evening, her husband turned up. He says, the first time he's bloody done that. Married Edgar. You might know Married Edgar. Married Edgar was born in Scotland in 1880. It's not a name that springs to mind even to theatre devotees such as myself, but he was a prolific scriptwriter of his time. For scriptwriter, read monologue writer, and his monologues were nearly always performed in a Northern English accent. Married Edgar hit fame, if you can call hitting fame, when he was a scriptwriter, a monologue writer, when he teamed up with Stanley Holloway, and he wrote the Sam monologues. You know, he'll pick up that musket. But his most famous creation was, anybody have an idea?
Albert and the Lion.
Albert.
Who said that?
Me, Peter Williams.
Peter Williams. I'm looking
Yep.
for you. Oh, there you are. Yes, Peter, you're absolutely right. But he wrote a dozen or so monologues about Albert, but this is one that I do like. It's entitled "The Recumbent Posture." The day after Christmas, young Albert was confined to his bed with a tight kind of pain in his stomach and a light feeling up in his head. His parents were all in a fluster when they saw little lad was so sick. They said, "Put out your tongue." When they seen it, they said, "Put it back again, quick." Ma made him a basin of gruel, but that were a move for worse. The little lad tried hard to eat it. Sorry. Excuse me. I was just drinking. Ma made him a basin of gruel, but that were a move for worse. Though little lad tried hard to eat it, in the end, he did the reverse. The pain showed no sign of abating, so at last they got doctor to call. He said it were in the abdomen and not in the stomach at all. He sent him a bottle of physic with instructions not labelled to say, to be taken in recumbent posture, 1 teaspoon 3 times a day. As Marston reading label, Pa started to fidget about. He said, "Get teaspoon and dose him before he gets better without." "Can manage teaspoon," said Mother, look of distress on her face. It's this here recumbent posture. I've not got one in the place. Said Pa, "But what about Mrs. Lupton next door? You better ask her. A woman who's buried 3 husbands, well, she's bound to have one of them there." So round they went, asked Mrs. Lupton. "I know what you mean," she replied. "I had one on order for Horace, but he got impatient and died." She said, "You better try Co-op shop. They'll have one in stock, I dare say. In fact, I think I saw one in window last time I was passing that way." So round they went to Co-op, and at counter for household supplies, Pa asked for a recumbent posture. And the shopman said, "Yes, sir, what size?" Said Ma, "Well, it's for our little Albert. I don't know what size he would use. I know he takes 30s in collars and 6s 4 fittings in shoes." "Ah, if it's little lad's size you want," said the shopman, "I'm sorry to say we know about one in the building, and that one I sold yesterday." They tried every shop they could think of. They walked for 2 hours on clock, and though most places reckon they got one, not one of them had got one in stock. The last place they tried was chemist, and he looked at them both with a frown, and he told them a recumbent posture were Latin for lying down. "It meant lying down put in Latin," said Father. "Well, that's just what I thought." Then he picked up a side glance from Mother, and wishing said nought. "They're not dosing my lad with Latin," said Mother, her face looking grim. "Just plain castor oils he's having, and I'm leaving the posture to him." Tell me, anybody know this fella?
Jared Hoffman.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Oh, yes, it's the barrel
Barrel
of
of bricks. The barrel of bricks.
Oh, Galaxy Tab 53. Who was that then? Who just spoke?
It's Bob. Bob.
Bob.
Who said pile of bricks?
Me.
Barrel of bricks.
Oh, yeah, okay. Just that.
The
quite
Oxford
right.
Union speech, isn't it? The barrel of bricks.
Yeah, that's Oxford Union, yep.
Well, okay, Peter, but don't get ahead of me, all right? Hofflong was a bit of an oddball. not a comic or a stage performer, just a one-off character that appeals to my sense of humour. Hoffnung was born in Berlin in 1925. He came to London as a schoolboy refugee in 1939. And although he died at the very early age of 34, he achieved in that short life enough to fill a whole series of lifetimes. Artist, teacher, cartoonist, caricaturist, musician, tuba player, broadcaster and raconteur, a much sought after speaker at the Oxford and Cambridge Union, a prison visitor, and a Quaker. And these were all facets of his very creative personality. This piece is taken as an extract from a speech that he gave at the Oxford Union in 1956. It's gone down in the annals of such speeches as one of the most hilarious and memorable of all raconteurs there. It's, as you just now said, it's entitled The Bricklayer's Lament. Now, before I do this, let me just make one thing very clear. Gerard was obviously German, and in deference to any Germans in the audience, I will not be trying to do this in a German accent. I don't want to insult any Germans. I said that 3 weeks ago when I was talking to Cleethorpes Rotary Club, hit down this way. And at the end, the president said, I'm now going to ask Ernst Muller to give the vote of thanks. Can't make these up, it's absolutely true. I got this thing here I must read you. Now, it's terribly tragic. I shouldn't read it really, but I'm going to do. A striking lesson in keeping the upper lip stiff is given in a recent number of the weekly bulletin of the Federation of Civil Engineering Contractors magazine that prints the following letter from a bricklayer in Golders Green to the firm for whom he works. Respected sir, when I got to the top of the building, I found that the hurricane had knocked down some of the bricks off the top. So I rigged up a beam with a pulley at the top of the building and hoisted up a couple of barrels of bricks. When I fixed the building, there were a lot of bricks left over. So I hoisted the barrel back up again, securing the line at the bottom, and went up and filled the barrel with the extra bricks. Then I went to the bottom and cast off the rope. Unfortunately, the barrel of bricks was now heavier than I was. And before I knew what was happening, the barrel started down, jerking me off the ground. I decided to hang on. Halfway up, I met the barrel coming down and received a severe blow to my shoulder. I then continued to the top, banging my head against the beam and trapping my fingers in the pulley. When the barrel hit the ground, it burst its bottom, allowing all the bricks to spill out. I was now heavier than the barrel, so started down at great speed. Halfway down, I met the barrel coming up and received severe injury to my shins. When I hit the ground, I landed on the bricks, getting several painful cuts from the sharp edges. At this point, I must have lost my presence of mind because I let go of the line. The barrel came down, giving me a heavy blow on the head and putting me in the hospital. I respectfully request sick leave. That kills my voice. That one just read. Yeah. Now it's been a bit male-oriented so far, and as we've got one lady in the audience, I wave it. Yes. Oh, David was waving at me too. I'm going to introduce you to a lady now. Actually, she doesn't fit into the period that I'm talking about. She's actually still with us. She doesn't really, as I said, she doesn't fit in the period, but as it's my show, I can do as I like. If I say to you, it gives me poetic license to introduce the wonderful Pam Ayres.
Oh, yeah.
Pam Ayres was born in Stamford-in-the-Vale in Oxfordshire. After leaving Founders Secondary Modern School at the age of 15, she joined the civil service as a clerical assistant and worked at the Army Central Ordnance Depot in Bicester. She soon left there and joined the Women's Royal Air Force, where she worked in an office mucking around with maps. Whilst in the Air Force, she took her O-levels in English language, English literature, passed them, and decided that she wanted to change of career. She wanted to be an entertainer. She began reading poems in local folk clubs in Oxfordshire, and this led to an invitation to speak on radio in Radio Oxford. And these were then rebroadcast after 1974. And I guess that's when we all began to hear her. Just a second. Come on. I mean, I want to play them. You know?
Very fetching.
No, come on. We thespians like to play the part. Thespians, I said, Jonathan. This is called Clive the... Oh, John, what are you eating? I can't lip read.
Low-calorie ice cream. Isn't that what you do at the theatre?
Don't crackle the bag, please. This is called Clive the Fearless Birdman. Clive the Fearless Birdman was convinced that he could fly. At night he lay in bed and dreamt of soaring through the sky, of cruising through the clouds, of winging far out into space. And he had a leather helmet and a beak still on his face. Clive the Fearless Birdman had a wife who did not care for his flybound out ambition of cavorting through the air. With mocking and with ridicule, she did her best to kill it and cruelly filled his breakfast plate with cuttlefish and millet. But in his little punishment, he built some mighty wings out of balsa wood and sticky tape and plasticine and things. Up to his neck and feathers, which he'd taken months to pluck. He'd laboured with his even stick. He'd fashioned and he'd stuck. He tried it on at last and slowly turned from side to side. So wonderful it was, Clive the Birdman almost cried. So shiny were the feathers, all in silver and in black, with eiderdown up the front and turkey down the back. So Clive announced to all the culmination of his search, and he told the local papers he'd be jumping off the church. Seth, the old gravedigger, with a face as black as coal, said if he jumps off that steeple, I shan't have to dig an hole. So the day arrived and all the people came to stare. Police held back the crowds and the local press were there. Clive read out a noble speech and addressed to all the people that no one could hear because it was windy up that steeple. He stepped out in the sky and flapped his wings for just a minute, far above the vicar's garden as he plummeted straight in it. He lay there in the cabbages without another flutter, and the beak came off his helmet and went rolling down the gutter. But far away in heaven, Clive the Birdman reigned supreme, soaring through the air without the aid of jet or steam. So at the pearly gates, if it's with Clive you wish to speak, you can tell him by his harness and his helmet and his beak. I do like Pam Ayres a lot, Jonathan. I think, well, actually, I like her beads more than I like her, but that's another story. Just a minute. Bernard Miles.
Oh, golly.
Bernard James Miles, Baron Miles, CBE, was an English character actor, writer and director. He opened the Mermaid Theatre in London in 1959, the first new theatre to be opened in the City of London since the 17th century. He was made a commander of the British Empire in 1953, knighted in 1969, and was granted life peerage as Baron Miles of Blackfriars in the City of London in 1979. Only the second British actor ever to begin with peerage, the first being, of course, Laurence Olivier. Bernard Miles is one of my favourite characters, and I'll tell you for why. Looking at you lots, I don't think there's many of you can remember black and white television.
Oh.
Oh,
Yes, we can.
Certainly Jonathan and Al can't, they can't. But, well, you can, well, okay. You're not old enough.
I can remember not having a television, let alone black and white television.
Yes, I know, Peter. Me, you too. But in those days, the announcers would wear dinner suits, black tie, and talk with a terribly posh voice. Bernard Miles was one of the first characters that I ever heard on television that had a dialect. He came from Hertfordshire, and he always spoke with a Hertfordshire dialect. So I'm going to attempt this piece. In his brogue. It's called One of the Old School. Afternoon. Here. I had my hair cut yesterday. A fella come across from Dunstable every fortnight, and he does the whole village in old Mrs. Wilkinson's scullery. He's got two prices. There's 8p or 4p, so you can either be cut or notched. The only difference is when he's notching, he goes a bit faster, but he ain't so careful. Last time you were here, he took ½ inch off Tommy Lavender's ear. Oh, when I went in there was Tommy with his head over the sink like this, blood poured out. And this here barber chap on his hands and knees, looking for the bit he chopped off. He found it. He found it behind the mangle. They tried to put it back on again, but it kept falling off. So Tom decided he's going to take it home in his matchbox. He said he's going to hang it on his watch chain. Yeah. I just been across Cottage Hospital. See old Harry Partridge. He's cut his leg on a bit of old iron and it's turned sceptical. I said to him, how are you feeling, Harry? He says, well, I'm better than what I was, he says, but I ain't as well as what I was before, as well as bad as what I am now. So you could tell he must have been feeling pretty poorly. There's one thing, though. He'll see a lot of changes when he comes out of that place because we've had proper water fitted, council water in pipes. I don't care for it myself, though. Well, there don't seem to be no strength in it. You can hardly taste it. You can't even smell it. Give me a drop of my old well water. You can smell that all right. That's probably why they made me fill it in. A fella come across from Luton. He took some away to have it annihilated. He comes back next day. He said, it's crawling with them. I said, crawling with them? Crawling with what? He said, bacteriums and microbes and minute animalizations, he said. I said, get away. I said, that's just a few tadpoles. We depend on them to eke out the meat ration. He had to laugh. Well, he said, well, it might be all right for bathing in, but it certainly ain't fit for drinking. Well, the idea. Bathing. I ain't never had a bath in my life, not as far as I know, and I don't want one neither. That's why I hope so I never has to go in hospital. A lot of young girls lugging you about, gawking at you. I've been private all my life, and that's the way I want to keep it. I told this here fella I never had a bath. He said, well, how do you get the dirt off then? So I said, well, when it's thick enough, it drops off. just like it do off a tater, It's got to be dry like. No. My old mother never bathed any of us. She used to rub us all over with bacon fat, then sew us up with flannel all through the winter. 11 of us were lying on kitchen table. We were sewed up around Michaelmas. We weren't on sew till about Lady Day. She used to cut 2 armholes in this little bit of flannel, put it on us like a jacket, then sew us up the middle with red cotton. 11 of us were lying on kitchen table. Then her and my old dad used to do each other. Well, the idea, bathing. When I went across the thin Miss Pigot's onions out, she said, oh, you're filthy. I reckon you needs a bath. She said, why, you're filthy. She said, you're dirty that Tommy Fairchild. So I said, well, I'm 3 years older than what he is, and I guess around a bit more. So she says, a rolling stone gathers no moss. So I said, no, and a sitting there don't grow no feathers on her belly. That Alice, she went as red as a beetroot, she did. I thought she was going to explode, I did. Well, fancy talking to me like that. It's a funny life, isn't it? Bathing? Ha. Stanley Holloway.
Oh, yeah.
Stanley Augustus Holloway was an English stage and film actor, comedian, singer, poet, and monologuer. Was an English stage and film actor, comedian, singer, poet, and monologuer. Oh, for Christ's sake. I can never get this word out. Al, where are you? Oh, you're up there. Al, you know when the year changed to 2000, what was that called?
Millennium.
The what?
The millennium.
That's right, the millennium. Well, this is another one of those words that I can't say. It's monologist. Anyway, he was a speaker of monologues. I'll do. He was born in London. He pursued a career as a clerk in his teen years. He went in the First World War in the infantry. And when he came out of there, he joined a group called the Co-optimists. And it's there when he met that fella that I was telling you about earlier on, Barry Edgar. Barry Edgar and Stanley Holloway teamed up. Barry Edgar wrote all the things like the Sam Small and the Albert Ramsbottom monologues for him. This is probably the most famous monologue of all. It's the one that made him famous. You all know it as, well, he called it The Lion and Albert. We all know it as Albert and the Lion. There's a famous seaside place called Blackpool that's noted for fresh air and fun. And Mr. and Mrs. Ramsbottom went there with young Albert, their son. That a grand little lad were young Albert, all dressed in his best, quite a swell. He'd a stick with the horses at handle, the finest that Woolies would sell. They didn't think much to ocean, the waves fiddling and small. There were no wrecks, nobody drowned, in fact, nothing to laugh at all. So seeking for further amusement, they paid and went into the zoo, where there were camels and lions and tigers, and old ale and sandwiches too. Now, there were one great big lion called Wallace. His nose were all covered in scars, and he lay in a somnolent posture with the side of his face against the bars. Now, Albert had heard about lions, how they were ferocious and wild, and to see Wallace lying so peaceful, well, didn't seem right to the child. So straightway, brave little fella, not showing a morsel of fear, took his stick with his horses at handle and shoved it in Wallace's ear. Well, you could see Lion didn't like it, for giving a kind of a roll, he pulled Albert inside cage with him and swallowed the little lad. Oh, then Pa, who had seen the occurrence and didn't know what to do next, said, "Mother, yon lion's at now, Albert." And Mother says, I am vexed." So Mr. and Mrs. Ramsbottom, quite rightly when all said and done, complained to Animal Keeper that Lion had eaten their son. The keeper, he was quite nice about it. He said, "What a nasty mishap. Are you sure it's your that is eaten?" Pa said, "Am I sure? There's his cap." So the manager had to be sent for. He came and said, "What's to do?" Pa said, "Yon lion's at now, Albert, and him and his Sunday best too." Then Mother says, "Right's right, young fella. I think it's a shame and a sin for a lion to go and eat our Albert, especially when we paid to come in." The manager wanted no trouble. He took out his purse right away and said, "How much to settle matter?" Pa said, "Well, what do you normally pay?" But Mother had turned a bit awkward now when she realised where her lad had gone. She said, "No, someone's got to be summoned." So that was decided upon. Round they went to the police station in front of Magistrate Chap. They told him what had happened to Albert and proved it by showing his cap. The magistrate gave his opinion that no one was really to blame, and he said he hoped the Ramsbottoms would add further sons to their name. At that, Mother got proper blazing. "And thank you, sir, kindly," said she. "What waste all our lives raising children to feed ruddy lions? Not me." Now, I normally finish with that, but I've got one more, and I'll tell you for why. I've done all these shows, and occasionally, especially the dark nights, my wife will come round with me occasionally. I think she comes with me just to make sure I'm going where I say I'm going, but that's another story. This particular night, we were driving home, about this time last year, dark night, I'm driving home, and all of a sudden she says, "I think you should change the ending." The car swerved. Well, I wasn't used to her talking to me in the car. Well, in fact, I'm not used to her talking to me at any time, but anyway, we swerved. I said, "What did you say?" She said, "I think you should change the ending." I said, "I can't change the ending. It's scripted. It's got pictures. It flows." "I think you should change the ending." So what have I done, Bob?
Change the ending.
Change the ending.
I've changed the ending. Yeah, I have. So I said to her, "Well, it's all right you saying that, but what do you suggest to do?" She said, well, do that one that describes you. I said, "I don't know which one you mean." She said, "Yes, you do. That one of Pam Ayres." Oh, I thought, good, I can wear the beads again. So Pam Ayres wrote this poem about 18, 19 years ago. It's listen to the words. They're as apt today as they were when she wrote it all that time ago. It's called "They Should Have Asked My Husband." You know the world is complicated, imperfect and oppressed, and it's not hard to feel timid, apprehensive and depressed. It seems that all around us tides of questions ebb and flow, and people want solutions, but they don't know where to go. Opinions abound about who is wrong and who is right. People need a prophet, a diffuser of the light, someone they can turn to as crises rage and swirl, someone with a remedy, the wisdom and the pearl. Well, they should have asked my husband. He'd have told them then and there his thoughts on immigration, teenage mothers, Tony Blair, the future of the monarchy, house prices in the South, the wait for hip replacement, BSE and foot and mouth. Yes, they should have asked my husband. He can sort out any mess. He can rejuvenate the railways. He can cure the NHS. So any little niggle, anything you want to know, just run it past my husband. Wind him up and let him go. Congestion on the motorways, free holidays for thugs, the damage to the ozone layer, refugees and drugs. These may defeat the brain of any politician bloke, but present it to my husband and he'll solve it in a stroke. He'll clarify the situation. He will make it crystal clear. You'll feel the glazing of your eyeballs and the bending of your ear. Corruption at the top, he's an authority on that. And the mafia, Gaddafi and Yasser Arafat. Upon these areas, he brings his intellect to shine in a great compelling voice that's twice as loud as mine. I often wonder what it must be like to be so strong, infallible, articulate, self-confident, and wrong. When it comes to tolerance, he hasn't got a lot. Joyriders should be guillotined, muggers should be shot. Encyclopedias on them we never have to call. Why clutter up the bookshelf when my husband knows it all? As Jimmy Williams used to say, aye, aye, that's your lot. Play the music. So enough of that. Did you like that?
Yeah.
Yes.
More.
Encore.
More?
Bravo.
Funnily enough, I got another 2.5 hours. No, I do have another one. It's very cleverly called Masters of Mirth, the sequel, which is another sort of basin full of same people. But thank you very much indeed. I really enjoyed tonight.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Would you be prepared to take a couple of questions if any of the Rotarians have?
If you have any question, I tell you what, if they ask me a question I can answer, that would be quite amazing.
So, does anybody have any questions for Mike?
I'm not embarrassed if you don't, because nobody ever does.
Right, okay. Well, then I guess,
I'm embarrassed.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Who did your interior decorating? Because it's a very nice kitchen you're sitting in.
Yeah, as one or two have noticed that. Actually, somebody who sat there said, it doesn't seem to get dark in Burton Joyce where you live, because it's still light coming through the window. That is a photograph of my place, and I'll tell you for why. Because in the early days when I started doing this, I would be talking away, and you can see it's a through thing. Right at the bottom end, my wife would start coming backwards and forwards across the picture and come and say, "Do you want a cup of tea?" And so all I did was took a picture, and that's a still of it. So that's the reason why it doesn't move or looks the same all the time. But thank you for asking. It's nice to know somebody takes notice.
any more questions?
Alistair wants one.
Alistair.
Yeah, Mike, I was just going to ask, I often see music hall as a very English thing. Was it as popular in Scotland as it was in England?
Oh God, yes.
Oh, well, you can answer that better than I could. Yeah, no, I'm sure it was. I mean, you hear the English comedians these days say, you know, play Glasgow Empire and die. You know, they all sort of say that. But no, I think it was just as popular in Glasgow and up there. I can think of at least one Scottish comedian. I can't actually, but
Harry Lauder.
Harry Lauder. Yes.
Tommy Martin.
I mean, I was trying to find, as you appreciate, that they're
Will
all
Fife.
Stanley
Will-
Baxter.
Stanley
Stanley
Baxter.
Baxter.
But they were all, they
Ricky
weren't
Fulton.
really monologues, were they? I looked for some that had done monologues, but I couldn't find any.
Ricky
know,
Fulton.
Yes. Oh, you see, you mentioned
Oh, Stanley Baxter did some great monologues. Yeah.
Jimmy Logan.
Stanley Baxter.
Stanley. Oh, yes. Yes.
Check
yes,
Murray.
yes.
Billy
Check
Connolly,
Check
too
Murray,
young for it
yeah.
to be considered.
Well, there you go. You've found a dozen already, Alistair.
That's good. We should have we'll run a club night, and those who remember can do one of the monologues.
Yes.
Right.
But,
Any final questions for Mike? No. Can I therefore ask Graham to do the vote of thanks, please?
Yes, thanks very much, Russell, and thank you, Mike. That was a really cracking presentation from you. Not only the history lesson about the origins of the music hall, but a very entertaining tour through the masters and one mistress of Mirth. I'm afraid I'm not old enough to recognise many of them, apart from Stanley Holloway and, of course, Pam Ayres, but she's a bit more my vintage.
You'll have to ask Jonathan. He'll tell you all about them.
Probably. But I noticed most of our older members were really in their element tonight, enjoying your tales, especially Andrew Hilly, who I didn't think was as old as he obviously must be. I'll probably pay for that at some stage, but never mind. At least we're remote at this point. You're obviously a glutton for punishment, Mike. I mean, that's 500, and I presume we're 504 in your list of talks, and I'm surprised you survived Glenrothes, but I suppose if you weren't there in person.
You know, funny enough, they said the same about you.
Yes, we know. We have a few colleagues over that way. But you're also twice president of your club, which is an achievement in itself.
Well, the first one was okay. The second one, that was by default, because in 2017, no, not 2017.
2016, 17, I've got.
Yes. In 2017, we had the district governor in our club. Have any of you lot been district governors?
No.
Good. Okay. Well, I can talk freely then. We were to have the district governor in our club. So in 2014, when we knew when somebody had to be the president that year, and there's nobody wanted to be it that year, and I wasn't at the meeting, I got voted as default. It was a difficult year, but it was an enjoyable year. But I enjoyed it.
Good. Anyway, the amount of money you've raised for Asthma UK is really impressive, Mike. 28,500 and counting, presumably. So long may you continue to provide this talk and also your sequel, which maybe in another dimension sometime next year when we're back to normal, we might even get you back again.
Well, I'll come up there, shall I?
Yes, we could pay us a visit and you could see how bad we really are. I've got a Chick Murray one-liner if you can.
Oh, go on, please.
No. One of the favourite.
Yes, I want to hear it, Graham.
Yeah, it's not a monologue, so it doesn't last very long. But Chick Murray said, "I first met my wife in the tunnel of love. She was digging it at the time." Which I thought was quite a good one.
His delivery was always about half the speed of that.
Yes, he was very, very slow and
very clever, very clever.
Yes, but anyway,
Sorry.
very good comedian. Anyway, that was really good, Mike. Really enjoyed it. Thanks very much for giving up your time. And can I ask our members and guests to show their appreciation by whatever physical or electronic means they can do so. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.